Welcome back to Epic Mind History. In our last episode, we witnessed the incredible journey of Ip Man, the master who brought Wing Chun out of secrecy and into the modern world. But when Ip Man passed away in Hong Kong on December 2, 1972, a crucial question emerged. What would become of his art? The story was far from over. In fact, the most expansive chapter of the Wing Chun saga was just beginning. This is the story of the global legacy, how a handful of dedicated students carried the art across the world, ensuring its survival and evolution for a new century. In the immediate aftermath of Ip Man's death, the Wing Chun community faced an uncertain future. The man who had been their guiding light for over 2 decades was gone, and there was no single successor appointed to take his place. The responsibility fell on 2 key groups who would shape the art's destiny in different but equally important ways. First, there were the Guardians in Hong Kong, led by Ip Man's own sons, Chun and Ip Ching. These 2 men had grown up immersed in the art, watching their father teach and train every day. They became the living link to their father's teachings, the keepers of the flame. While the world of Wing Chun was about to explode outward, they worked tirelessly throughout the 1970s and 1980s to preserve the core system exactly as Ip Man had taught it. They protected the original forms like Siu Nim Tao, Chum Kiu, and Biu Jee, maintaining the precise angles and core principles that defined their father's approach. Their mission was to ensure the heart of the art would not be lost or diluted amidst its coming global expansion. The second group was the pioneers, the first-generation students who would take Wing Chun across oceans and continents. These were men who had trained directly under Ip Man during his Hong Kong years and now felt called to spread the art they loved. Just 1 year after Ip Man's death in 1973, a man named William Chung made a momentous decision. He packed his bags and moved from Hong Kong to Melbourne, Australia, becoming one of the very first to bring Wing Chun to the Western world in a formal way. Chung began teaching at universities and local community centers, facing the challenge of introducing a completely foreign martial art to Australian students. He eventually established his own global organization, promoting what he called traditional Wing Chun. His approach emphasized a more rooted stance and certain techniques he believed were part of the older pre-Ip Man system, sparking both interest and debate within the growing community. Another monumental figure from this era was Wang Shunlong. Unlike Chung, he chose to remain in Hong Kong, but his influence would ultimately reach every corner of the globe. Wang was famous in the 1950s and 60s for his BMO, or comparative fights, where he tested his Wing Chun against other martial artists. His success in these encounters earned him the nickname Gong Sao Wang, the king of talking with hands, a poetic way of saying he let his fists do the talking. He was a fierce pragmatist who believed Wing Chun must be proven through combat, not just theory. His most famous student, even before Ip Man's passing, was Bruce Lee. The lessons Lee learned from Wang Shunlong, particularly about efficiency, directness, and interception, deeply shaped his early martial philosophy. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Wang's school in Hong Kong became a magnet for serious students who wanted to learn a highly efficient and tested version of the art. The great Wing Chun diaspora continued with masters like Hawkins Chung, who brought the art to the United States in the early 1970s. He settled in California and began the slow work of building a student base, often starting with small classes in garages and community centers. Around the same time, another Ip Man student named Augustine Fong established himself in Tucson, Arizona, creating a strong lineage that would spread throughout the Southwest America. These pioneers faced the immense challenge of translating a deeply Chinese art for an American audience, explaining concepts like centerline theory and Chi Sao to students with no cultural context. Meanwhile, back in Hong Kong, other senior students like Leong Shung, Lok Yao, and Ju Wan ensured the art remained strong at its source, training the next wave of instructors who would eventually travel to Europe, South America, and across Asia. We're right in the middle of tracing Wing Chun's incredible path across the globe.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into how a martial art conquered the world, please show your support by subscribing to Epic Mind History. Your subscription is a huge help and allows us to continue bringing you these detailed historical stories. And now, let's get back to the journey. While these masters were laying the physical foundations abroad, a cultural phenomenon was about to give Wing Chun an unprecedented boost that would dwarf all their efforts combined. That phenomenon was Bruce Lee. He had moved to the United States back in 1959 and developed his own philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, but his untimely death in 1973 coincided with the global release of his blockbuster film Enter the Dragon. The movie was a seismic event in worldwide pop culture, breaking box office records and making Lee an instant legend. Because Lee had consistently credited Wing Chun as his foundational art in interviews and writings, millions of new fans now wanted to learn what they saw as the source of his incredible speed and power. Overnight, the schools run by Ip Man students, from Hong Kong to Melbourne to California, saw a massive influx of new students. Bruce Lee, the rebellious student who had trained both under Ip Man and Wang Shunlong, had become the single greatest advertiser for his teacher's art, ensuring its permanent place in the global martial arts imagination. As Wing Chun put down roots in different soils across the 1980s and 1990s, it naturally began to evolve and adapt, creating a diverse and vibrant family tree of lineages. A student of William Chung named David Peterson became a leading authority in Australia, writing influential books and producing instructional videos that reached students who had no access to a physical school. In Europe, masters like Keith Kernspecht in Germany built massive organizations, most notably the European Wing Chun organization, ETWO, which translated ancient texts and standardized curricula for tens of thousands of students. Each major lineage, while sharing the same core principles of centerline control and simultaneous attack and defense, began to emphasize different aspects of the art. Some focused more on preserving the traditional forms exactly as learned, while others prioritized live sparring and combat efficiency. This wasn't a splintering or a weakening of the art, but rather a sign of a healthy, living system adapting to new environments and challenges. It is also crucial for a complete history to understand that the Ip Man system is just one branch, albeit the most famous one, of a much larger Wing Chun tree. Other important lineages survived from the pre-Ip Man era in Foshan, China, offering a different window into the art's past. The Yuan-Ke San lineage, carried forward by the legendary master Sum Nung in Guangzhou, China, represents a complete and distinct system with its own unique forms and training methods. Similarly, the Pan Nam branch, preserved by Master Pan Nam until his death in 1995, showcases another unique approach with different footwork and hand techniques. These non-Ip Man lineages, along with others like the Gulo and Jishim branches, remind us that Wing Chun was a diverse art with multiple interpretations long before it became a global phenomenon through the Ip Man family. The next great wave of popularity arrived in the 21st century, once again fueled by the power of cinema. In 2008, the film Ip Man, starring Donnie Yen, became a massive international hit. This was followed by several sequels and a new series of movies about Bruce Lee. These films, while taking some dramatic license, introduced the names Ip Man and Wing Chun to a new generation. Search queries for Wing Chun classes near me skyrocketed worldwide throughout the 2010s, proving the enduring power of film to shape cultural interests and drive people toward traditional arts. Dojos that had been struggling suddenly found themselves with waiting lists, and a new wave of instructional content flourished on platforms like YouTube. This modern era has also brought new challenges and debates, primarily with the rise of mixed martial arts, MMA, as a global sport. Since the first UFC event in 1993, all traditional martial arts have been scrutinized for their practical effectiveness in a no-holds-barred environment. This forced the Wing Chun community to ask hard questions about its training methods. In response, some practitioners began cross-training in grappling and other disciplines, while others, like the late Master Robert Downey Jr.'s teacher Alan Orr, developed combat Wing Chun systems specifically designed to hold up under the pressure of modern fighting sports. This ongoing evolution, while sometimes controversial, ensures the art remains a living, breathing practice for self-defense and personal development, not just a static museum piece or a performance art. Today, Wing Chun's presence is truly global, and its impact profound. From its humble origins in southern China over 300 years ago, it is now practiced in nearly every country on Earth. You can find schools from Buenos Aires to Moscow, from Tokyo to Cape Town. The story of Wing Chun is ultimately the story of a powerful idea, an idea of efficiency, simplicity, and directness that proved so resilient and universal, it transcended its origins. It survived the fall of an empire, found a savior
in a time of crisis, was carried by pioneers to new lands, and was amplified by a superstar to the world. It is no longer just a Chinese martial art. It is a human legacy, a gift from the past that continues to grow, adapt, and inspire people from all walks of life in their pursuit of skill, discipline, and self-knowledge. And that concludes our three-part journey through the history of Wing Chun. But the story of one of its most famous students is a legend in its own right. Wait for Part 4, where we will separate the man from the myth and explore the real-life history of Bruce Lee. We'll trace his journey from his childhood in Hong Kong to his struggles and triumphs in America, and uncover how he forged a philosophy that changed martial arts forever. It's a story you won't want to miss. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into history, please make sure you are subscribed to the Epic Mind History channel. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified the moment our next documentary is released. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter.